Welcome to Fireside Nets with Spen and Nick. This is your number one place for Nets news, information, reactions, breakdowns, and so much more. My talented brother Nick, who, as you guys know, because he mentions it every single episode, is a writer, an actor, a director, a creator of content, if you will, outside of being the co-host of this Fireside Nets show. He's out, he's busy, he's got better things to do. So I am joined by Boston Cliff. And obviously with the finals on the horizon, the Celtics are in it. This is an appropriate guest to have on the show. So Boston Cliff, how the hell are you?
Couldn't be better, baby. I mean, there's a leak in my apartment. I'm still above water, but it's the finals. We're fucking here, ready to do it. I know this is a Brooklyn Nets podcast, but you can live vicariously through Celtics fans' joy as they go on to defeat Kyrie Irving and the Dallas Mavericks.
And I think that's what we're doing. I think that's why I wanted you on. I can sit here and try to talk about the Nets for 30 minutes, but on the eve of the finals, it just didn't make sense. I wanted someone, in the thick of things who's rooting for one of these teams, and I wasn't going to have a Dallas Mavericks fan on. Let's be real here. So, and before I have one question for you, but before I get into that, I think it's ironic that you have a leak in your apartment, because when the Lakers played the Celtics in the 80s, weren't there the stories about how in the Garden they would turn the hot water off in the showers? And was that the Celtics or was that the Patriots? I can't remember.
That's some old folklore, things of that nature. The fact that no AC in the old Garden as well. I mean, it was an old building. I mean, nothing nefarious going on whatsoever. These things sometimes happen though when old buildings. But hey, I haven't heard that complaint in years. I mean, I've heard about bad aura and things like that would then cause an opposing player to sage your arena. But outside of that, I mean, no issues now. So Dallas won't have that excuse.
Can you confirm that the person who runs your building isn't a Mavericks fan and they're just trying to ice you out with this leak?
I can neither confirm nor deny that. We're still looking. Investigation is still open.
All right, so let's get into it. Finals preview, Celtics Mavericks first game in Boston tonight, June 6th. I think 8:30 is when it's scheduled for. Is that accurate? I have no idea.
8:37 tip-off.
8:37 tip-off. So my first question, and this is for all Nets fans listening, how does it feel to have your team in the NBA Finals?
Feels fucking great. I can't lie. I mean, this is what you go all year for. The regular season. It's been a while, 2 years since we've been here. It's a
real while there.
Me being on the team. It's been a while since we've been here. But, yeah, high stakes. It was pretty shitty last time when they lost. Golden State winning in Boston, things like that. But hopefully that experience is paying dividends now for Tatum, Brown, those guys. So also in Boston, you might not be familiar, the weather is fucking terrible most of the time, and it only gets nice out around now. So the city is fucking feeling it. We got beautiful weather. Vibes are high right now for the game. I stayed out of the city for the moment because it is absolutely shithouse crazy with traffic and people around the Garden. So, I mean, we're all in a good mood, but it's all for naught if they don't finish the job. It's not about, celebrating game one. It's about celebrating the title, getting that parade. So that's, there's excitement, but, you're anxious for it too. Those pregame jitters.
Well, I'll tell you this. 2 years ago, you guys got a taste, and you were up 2-1 in the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. You couldn't get the job done. They would go on to win in 6 games, correct? Or was it 5? No, I guess 6.
6, yeah, it was 6 because the Celtics
6 would make sense because you had won 2 games.
Away from going up 3-1, and they fucking blew it. So,
like you mentioned, you're battle tested. Good learning experience. We're going to get into narratives right now, but before we do, I just want to let everyone know the reason that I'm wearing a green hat, a Trafoni's Steakhouse green hat, is because I'm pulling for Boston. Yes, I don't have a dog in this fight, but as Nets fans, we actually there's a lot going on for Nets fans, right? You have a choice here. If you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, New Jersey Nets fan, you have the team who fleeced you like 15 years ago to now. They gave you Pearson Garnett. You gave them the draft picks that would eventually turn into Tatum, Brown, Smart, whoever. And that was on you. That was on Billy King. I don't harbor hatred against the Celtics for that happening. That could have happened if the Nets didn't make the trade. The Nets did not have to trade for an aging Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. We move forward. I look at the Celtics, Cliff, Pat, whatever your name is, and I think that there has never really been, well, I'm sorry, let me not say never really. There hasn't been a rivalry between our organizations in a while. I'm going back to the J Kidd, Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker days, right? Once you got the big three, we sucked. When we had Pierce and KG, you guys were rebuilding. You had the one season where we had the big three. We beat you in the first round. You were banged up. I get it. You were not fully healthy. The next year, you come back and you sweep a dysfunctional team. And with Kevin Durant and Kyrie, that was a 7 seed. We were not a good basketball team that year. So I say this all to tell Nets fans, if you want to have a dog in this fight, root against the Dallas Mavericks. There is a player on the Mavericks by the name of Kyrie Irving. I did not mention his name last podcast. We're at the final, so I have to mention it now. This guy, outside of being an incredible basketball player on the court, I want to reiterate, he's one of the best scorers in the game. He did nothing but cripple your organization every time he had the chance. I'm not going to get into specifics, but he was horrible here off the court. Did not work. You get rid of him. You get Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith. Dinwiddie's already in LA, so he's gone. DFS might be on another team by the start of next season. But why on earth would you want this guy to win anything? I don't want Kyrie to ever win something substantial for the rest of his career. That's why I'm on the Boston bandwagon, and that's why I have a green hat for this episode.
Yeah, I guess it'd be remiss for me now, I guess, to thank Brooklyn Nets organization for gifting Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to the Celtics, my two very large, wonderful sons. And like you mentioned, it's been a while. Those are some of my first memories going back to the J Kidd Nets teams. It sucked losing, but even back then, I mean, we had that comeback in the fourth quarter of the finals that first go around, East Conference Finals, and that's when kind of ignited the fandom of a young Cliff. So, we've had a long history. I'd like to see you guys get back there. I thought it could have been a great rivalry if the three guys who used to be a part of the Brooklyn Nets organization were still there. Of course, I'm referring to Jason Kidd, Mikhail Prokhorov, and you. So anyways, I would like to say that, I mean, looking at the team that you guys had with Kyrie, like you mentioned, great player on the court, kind of a head case off the court, but, live and love, I guess. I think that now you guys are in the mode where, all right, how can you recoup from the lost time? I thought Nets were on a great trajectory when they had that rebuild going. Kenny Atkinson led team, should have never actually. I think that might have been one of the first dominoes that really just set the Nets up for, I won't say failure. That would be mean of me on a Brooklyn Nets podcast, but unsuccess. Kowtowing to KD and them to get Nash in there. Oh, that was the third guy I was going to mention. Yeah. Steve Nash, getting him in there over Kenny Atkinson, who had those guys, playing hard. And we used to talk about this back in the day. Those teams reminded me of the Celtics, Isaiah Thomas, early Brad Stevens teams, where overachieving, young talent, guys who play hard, role players. And you started to see that the Nets were building something. I mean, given Karis LeVert he's just been Karis LeVert since leaving Brooklyn. I mean, he had those flashes like that, he scored like 40 or 50 against the C's that one game back years ago when everyone was out. And guys like Jared Allen, I've been a big Jared Allen fan. So what you have now, You have almost your new Jared Allen, a little bit different with Clax. Do you guys go and resign him? If the money's right, I feel like you almost have to, unless I don't know how much faith you have in other young big men such as Clowney. I know he didn't play too much this year, but I mean the Nets are also in a tough cap situation because they pretty much cut off their nose to spite their face with the Harden deal, taking back Ben Simmons, and that 40 mil just weighing down your cap. So you might not be able to go over. Actually, now that I think about it, I have no idea how the hell the bird rights and things like that factor. I don't even know if Claxton has those yet. But as far as being able to try to keep them, I do like Clax. But you have to kind of, I think, go for the full rebuild now if you're the Nets. You can maybe try to fiddle around a little bit this offseason, getting rid of guys like DFS, like you mentioned, who still have value, good contract to trade. But besides that, I really think that it's more so you just got to go through it next year, go through the growing pains, one more season. The young guys, Cam Thomas, De'Aaron Sharp, let them get more run. I'd like to see you guys bring back Lonnie Walker. I feel like he had a lot of highs and lows this past season, but he's a guy who I've been a fan of since he was playing college ball in Miami. So I think that you need to go back to one of those seasons. And I honestly think that your results won't be much different than it was this year, trying to kind of, straddle the fence with, okay, is Bridges enough to, be number one or two on a legit contender? It's not looking like that right now. But do you try to get rid of McHale? It's tough. The trade options are kind of limited. Free agency is kind of a gutter this summer. I know you guys don't got any draft picks, so I really do think that retain a couple of guys like Clax and Lonnie if you can. Let the other young guys grow and see what you get for value potentially in a trade market for DFS, for Bridges. Write it out. And honestly, you guys aren't in the worst position. You got to keep an eye on what the hell are the Suns going to do. Are they going to bring back, that terrible three they have right now? Because I believe this pick next year is unprotected, correct? For the Nets?
I think so. Without looking at it, I think so.
Which is, I feel like, extremely rare these days in the NBA for a fully unprotected pick. Hey, you guys give the Celtics a couple unprotected picks. That was tight. I'm sorry, it just came to me as I was thinking out loud about unprotected picks. Because everyone now does top three protected, you see, for the most part. So that was, I think, a silver lining for you guys right now in the rebuild, where if the Suns are forced to kind of go into, blowing it up, trying to figure out their future, it could be nice little pick for you guys next year. So it's going to suck, but you got to take enjoyment in watching those young guys grow. You got to find, for me, it was the Marcus Smarts, just a fun young player to watch, love and trust. You guys got to love and trust Cam Thomas and those guys and just see what happens, rebuild that culture that it was desirable to come to Brooklyn with what Atkinson had built because you had some pieces, you had what seemed like, some reliability, consistency, and then that just all went away. So you need to get back, I think, to getting that culture back, and then from there, just try to attract anyone else. And then hopefully you get a top three pick next year. That'll be the Cooper Flag draft, right?
I think so. Yeah. I would kill for Cooper Flag.
Hey, man,
murder.
He's a New England boy. He probably wouldn't hate still being in the Northeast. So, I think we got to start pushing the Cooper Flag to Brooklyn agenda if I were you. That's just me if I were you,
Well, we got some wise words from Boston Cliff for all you Nets fans out there. This is a guy who's been a winner for a few years now with the Celtics squad. So I would take what he says very seriously. If you're Sean Marks and Joe Tsai, I know there are people in the Brooklyn Nets organization that actually do listen to this show. So if you heard my guy Cliff talk for the last 4 minutes, everything he said, it made sense. It holds weight. I agree with you. If we're talking about where the Nets should go from here, and I guess we'll talk Nets before we get into Celtics and Mavericks. I'm 100% with you. You tried to pivot from the big three, went to the big two, then you tried to pivot to this Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson-led team. Has not worked. You still believe in Mikal Bridges, but At what cost? At what expense? Um, does a Donovan Mitchell, Mikal Bridges team break the top 3 in the East? Probably not. Probably not. So I 100% agree with you. And there was a report, Kevin O'Connor, who did a mock NBA draft the other day on YouTube. He said that his sources have told him that the Nets and the Rockets were in talks about dealing that number 3 pick in this draft for Mikal Bridges. Now, as a fan who has the same mindset as you, Cliff, I was very excited about the prospect of getting that number 3 pick. There are a lot of decent players in this draft. And obviously, that wouldn't be the only guy that the Rockets would trade. It'd probably be the number 3 pick, another first round pick, and maybe Jalen Green. Who knows? What we do know is that Ime Udoka, former Boston Celtics coach, a little bit of a ladies' man.
Almost Brooklyn Nets coach, too.
Almost Brooklyn Nets coach. But being a ladies' man kind of got in the way of that. He really wants Mikal Bridges in Houston. So that report comes out. I got excited as a Nets fan. A lot of Nets fans who agree that they want to do a full rebuild got excited. And then what happens, Pat, Cliff? A report comes out that basically says the Nets have no interest in moving Bridges. And this has been the Rockets trying to putting little breadcrumbs out there to try to get the Nets, to pressure the Nets to make a move as the draft is coming up. It's 2 to 3 weeks away. So just food for thought. As much as I want to rebuild, as much as you think a rebuild would be a good idea, getting 1 million first-round picks, getting rid of the contracts of Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, just get rid of everybody, DFS you mentioned, and just basically OKCing the fuck out of this organization and getting a ton of picks, it doesn't seem like Marks wants to go that route.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one, it probably shouldn't be Mark's decision at this point. So Josiah, if you're listening, I bleed green, buddy. But green's also the color of money. So if you want to bring me into the organization, I mean, my GM experience is limited, but I think I could maybe make more of an impact on what we're seeing right now. Because as you mentioned, you're just standing pat, it seems like, as far as from Mark's perspective, where he doesn't want to get fleeced. I don't want to get fleeced. I don't want to make the trade. And, shout out to Danny Ainge for all the good he did for the Celtics, but this is something that Celtics fans always dealt with, where Danny Ainge and his assets, where he sometimes overvalued the assets. You saw, he held on to so many first-round picks that could have been used in trades, things like that, as opposed to Brad Stevens comes in and he says, I'm not drafting a fucking player during my entire tenure. Get rid of all these first-round picks. A little bit different situation now in your guys' case, not having the picks. But I really do. If you can get off some of those contracts. Cam Johnson got that contract in Phoenix, correct? You guys didn't give him – you didn't re-up him, did you?
We did, yeah. We did last season.
You re-upped Cam Johnson with that contract?
I believe so. Yeah, that's accurate. Cam
Good
Johnson
Lord.
contract. Yeah, no,
Good
100%.
Lord, man.
We
I mean,
yeah, he signed a 4-year, $94.5 million contract with the Brooklyn Nets, including $90 million guaranteed and an average salary of $23.6 million per year.
I would say that's a good tradable contract, but only when you're the one making the trade for the better player and it's an expiring contract. But he still has, I think, 3 seasons left on it. So it's like, that's when you got to really try to, if you got to take back a little bit of a lesser return, it's not about, am I winning this deal? It's about having a vision of how to utilize your roster and who do you think. I don't think the Nets are going to be a championship contender next year. I'm sorry to break that news right now, but what's the point of trying to stand pat and put a couple little pieces around those guys? Again, you're limited in what you can do in free agency and the trade market. So you might have to take a couple small losses to just kind of reset yourself. Marks, I don't think he also might be in that position where he feels the heat, which is justified in my eyes. But I don't. So he doesn't want to go to Joe's side and be like, all right, we're going to rebuild now. Give me another 3-4 years, because that's not good business. So for him, it's like, all right, how do we try to stay? Can we go from being fringe play-in team to trying to get into the play-in, be a 7 or 8 seed? But at the end of the day, what's the point of that if all of a sudden by the time you actually start to elevate, all these guys, Bridges, is he going to walk for nothing? That's 2 years, I believe, left on his contract. So next year is the one you really got to decide. And the value of that is going to go down going into this contract year where it'll be a rental for a team. So I really think that Bridges, you can't pull what right now Mark seems to be doing where he wants to win the trade. And that going back to Danny Ainge, is that Danny Ainge always had to win the trade. That's why you saw situations like Gordon Hayward walked away for nothing when they were in the middle, pretty much done deal with the Pacers for Miles Turner. And then Ainge kept dragging out the deal. And Hayward said, all right, I'm done facilitating this for you guys. I'm just going to free agency. So a little bit different situation because I was down to the wire. But I really think you got to look at trying to get rid of the Bridges. You got to look at trying to get rid of Cam next season. Johnson, not Thomas. But Johnson first, but I think the Bridges, if you can get that 3 pick, I just don't like this year's draft that much. I feel like people say that every draft, and you see surprise classes like what was it, 2 years? Yeah, the class 2 years ago, which I cannot remember anyone in that class off the top of my head for some reason right now. Besides Chet Holmgren, who didn't even play, but that was a class that was looked at as no one outside of the top, 2-3 guys, and actually a lot of good young role players are in that class. So, but I just don't know if, like I said, you need additional first round picks. You need a Jalen Green or something, because I don't see you guys getting to the next level with Bridges as the team's constructed. And I wouldn't sweat it too much because Houston, I don't see that team. So you got, but you got Smith, you got Sengun, and then you add Bridges to that. Like they got some nice pieces, but in that Western Conference, I don't see them. They had some nice little runs this year, but I don't know if those 3 necessarily stack up with the rest of the West. So let the Rockets be the one to overpay Mikal Bridges in a couple of seasons because they have nowhere else to go instead of you guys. So it's either you let them walk for nothing, or you let the value of the asset decrease. So yeah, I'd say that someone maybe should be making that decision other than Marks if he's not going to make a decision at all. But that's
That
Joe Sarah's
draft
job.
you were talking about, by the way, was
What?
Banchero was one. The 2022 draft, I guess. Banchero was one. Holmgren was 2. Jabari Smith Jr. 3. Keegan Murray 4. Nice player. Jaden Ivey 5. Benedict Mathurin 6. Nice player. Shaden Sharp 7. Really nice player. Down the list, Jalen Williams was number 12 in that draft. Oklahoma City Thunder, Jalen Williams, great playoff, great season. Jalen Duren, 13. The list goes on and on. I'm trying to see if there's a Christian Braun at 21, champion with the Nuggets. Walker Kessler, 22. So nice draft.
And that's kind of my point, I think, where it's you don't necessarily the 3rd pick. You can sell that to your fans a little bit, saying, "Hey, we got a top 3 pick here." But in this kind of draft where it might be another crapshoot, I don't know anything about how. I mean, they've done a couple. Scouting department has done a decent job of identifying guys like the Cam Thomas and things like that. But
Marks, if he has history doing anything well, he's a good drafter, right? You look at guys like Nick Claxton, late first round pick. I think Claxton was. I think Claxton was a later first round pick. Yeah. Cam Thomas was first round. Day'Ron Sharp was a second round guy, I think. Yeah, Day'Ron Sharp, decent player. Jared Allen, first round guy. These are all Mark's guys. So Marks does have some talent as a drafter. He's just some of the moves he's made as a general manager in terms of moving pieces haven't been the best.
Yeah, well, even if is that a case where I feel like a guy like DFS, if you identify any kind of player that you think has a bright future in this draft, you might not have to go to top 3 to get him. Say if you move DFS's contract for another bad expiring contract, again, just let your young guys play, just take on that $14-15 million contract, an older guy from another team, and try to get back into the middle of the first round. If you do feel you want more young guys to build and grow around the other ones like Thomas and Sharp, and Claxton if he stays, if Clowney actually continues to grow. But I don't. That number 3 pick isn't the most appealing. Or like I said, would you rather give up Bridges, get that number 3 pick, maybe a couple other pieces? It depends what those pieces are, or do you go the route of uh, Cam Johnson DFS trade and just try to get a first round pick regardless of where it is? Say not no. Hey, if you want, Celtics got a late first round pick. I probably wouldn't go that far back, but if you can try to get something in that 15 to 20 range for a guy like DFS, where he's good, he has value, but how much value is going to add to the team? I mean, veteran presence definitely. You want some veteran presence around, but if you can get a first round pick for DFS, then why not? But it has to be
Yeah,
someone you actually
he's
like.
got first round value. There'll be a team that'll reach for him. There
Yeah.
has to be. There always is. Claxton was a second round pick. He was drafted 31 overall in 2019. So I
Okay.
wanted to correct myself. Pat, Cliff, I have one more question regarding the Nets, and then I want to move on to the Celtics and talk finals. Thoughts on the Jordy Fernandez hiring?
I'm okay with it. I think there were some more appealing candidates out there. I think he's better than your last 2 head coaches. Jacques Vaughn, that might not be the most fair to, but I think it was a good hire. I would have liked to maybe see something a little more sexy, going, one of those like, where the hell is he going? Who the hell just hired Charles Lee? The
Charles
Celtics,
Lee?
yeah, the Celtics assistant. He literally just got
Wasn't
hired.
it the Hornets?
Don't
Charles
believe
Lee.
so.
Hornets hired Charles Lee
It
as
was.
coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So guys like that were like, Charles Lee, Sam Cassell, those are guys on the Celtics bench. You even look at, I know it's completely separate, but situation like fucking think about college. BYU's just hired the top assistant off of I forget, it's Kevin something, like Kevin Young or something, top assistant in Phoenix, who had a lot of people looking at him in the NBA. They blew him away with that college, that donor money, but just going for something a little bit different outside the box rather than just another repackage of a guy who hasn't had much success. But I think that you gotta give Fernandez at least 2 seasons unless it's an absolute mess. But you gotta get back to that Kenny Atkinson, those days where you let the coach grow, you let him kind of put his vision out there, find guys that fit his system. It has to be kind of a collective effort rather than what you see when you have all the talents with KD and those guys, but your coach is a fucking idiot with Steve Nash. I mean, it has to be that you need that cohesiveness. Everyone on the same page, top to bottom in the organization. So I think that hire does kind of align with that. A sign marks guy, young team, he can kind of mold, get rid of the older guys. So I think there's potential there. I'm not completely down on it. I would have liked something a little bit more sexy, but you know what? Hey, sexy. You guys tried to be sexy before, and it did not turn out very sexy. So get back to that meat and potatoes mindset and just build from within.
I'm with it. I'm on record. I like the Jordy Fernandez hiring. I agree. It's not the sexiest name. It wasn't the biggest splash. It's not Dan Hurley, but I think he's the right coach for what they're trying to do now. How they're trying to sort of rebrand and you're right, build a new culture. All right, let's talk finals. I just read Boston Cliff the celebrities that are expected at TD Garden tonight. Are you ready for this list?
Donnie Wahlberg, Donnie Wahlberg, Donnie Wahlberg.
Yep. So Mark and Donnie Wahlberg, Jenny
Oh,
McCarthy,
Mark
Bill
decided to
Walton's
come home.
family. Taco Fall is going to be there. Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, he's the head coach of Man City, I believe. Him and Missoula are randomly buddies now.
Zdeno Chara, Dana White, Janine Russell. And then you have 4 members of the Patriots, 2 members of the Raiders, 9 members of the Eagles. So interesting. And that was reported
Yeah.
by Taylor Snow, Celtics senior writer and insider. So let's
Wait,
talk
quick,
about
did you
this.
say will Menounos be there or no?
She's not on the list. I don't know.
God damn it! I mean,
She could be there though. Uh, let's get into some narratives. There's a lot of narratives here. We talked
people
about
want
the
Menounos,
Celtics.
man. People want Menounos.
Maria Menounos?
Yeah, dude, she's from Medford, kid.
I didn't know that.
So isn't
Um,
Bia, the rapper who's now beefing with Cardi B. So, get her some FaceTime out there too, man.
we talked about the Celtics being battle tested. They've been here before and lost. We've heard that Kyrie and Luka are the greatest backcourt of all time, according to the media. This is a revenge game or a revenge series for Kyrie Irving against Boston. Didn't go so well the last time he stepped on Lucky. And this is a revenge game for Kristaps Porzingis against his former team, the Mavericks, where it just didn't really work out. But the media wants to paint it like him and Luka wanted to fight each other with knives. So you followed the Celtics all year. I mean, give me a narrative that people aren't necessarily talking about that is going to come to light once this series begins.
I mean, that's tough considering we've had a month between series. So I feel like every talking point has been made. I mean, from Celtics perspective, you got to see how the bench performs when needed. Obviously, Porzingis' health is a factor. I shouldn't even say I think he's feeling better than leading on in the past couple days because it has been so long. But then again, you saw Giannis had the same injury, and when he officially didn't go in the playoffs, at the end they're like, "Oh yeah, he wasn't even close. He was only like at 40%." So I do think that KP's minutes will be a big thing. That kind of combines with the Horford. Do you see Al Horford's age catch up to him now? A little bit earlier in the series, in the playoffs, there were some times he had some trouble. You look at this series against, even going back to Cleveland, there were some times where Mobley was eating him up. And when his shot wasn't falling to stretch the floor, it was tough. But then he bounced back last series, had that 7 3-pointer game, things like that. But you saw it in the Golden State one, he just, by the end of it, he had more minutes in that playoff run, I believe. So he was just kind of cooked by the end of it. So I really think that how much can Al Horford give you? He's played a lot because of the Porzingis injury, but that's going to be a main factor, that matchup, to try to, if Al Horford can stay effective, hitting those threes, dragging Lively and Gafford outside the paint, opening it up for, JB and JT to get to the lane. That is going to be the factor, because if Al Horford goes cold, if those legs get tired, and all of a sudden Lively and Gafford are able to hang out in the paint, it completely changes the dynamic of the game. Because even though the Celtics are heavy dependent on the three, going 5 out at times, they still do have those guys besides even Brown and Tatum, White and Holiday, being able to, those bigger guards getting to the basket. So you get Gafford and Lively out of there, let Drew and Derek get to work in that pick and roll and drive to the basket. So I think that's going to be Al Horford. They go hand in hand, but Al Horford, how much energy he has, how much he has left in the tank, I think it's just as big as Porzingis, being healthy out there. So it'll be interesting. Also, Missoula we've given a lot of fans have given him crap about his timeout calling, where sometimes you'll see teams go on these big runs against the Celtics when the Celtics have a lead. It'll be a 15-point lead. Missoula won't call a timeout until it gets down to a 6-point lead. So that's going to be the big question in this series, where, is Missoula ready for it? Is he going to make the right adjustments in game, especially? He can adjust. He's good at adjusting after a game, after a loss. We saw it in Miami and Cleveland series. But you can't afford the losses really now. It goes for every series, I guess, but especially now, you got to be able to adjust in game, not just after watching film. That's what it's going to come down to, I think, especially if it goes 6-7 games.
Who's going to have a better series, Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown?
That's a good question. I think statistically it will be Tatum.
Okay, but Brown's going to make the bigger plays.
Well, that's exactly what happened last series. Tatum averaged the most points, most rebounds, most assists in the team. Brown wins the MVP because that, the 3-pointer that put it into overtime. His defense too, just some of the big plays he made. So if he's going to be on Luka, then that'll be interesting. If you're able, how Luka's been going off, if you can contain Luka while still putting up, averaging between 23 to 25 points. Look at the Iguodala Finals MVP where it's just, and even Kawhi, where both those guys primarily won the MVP for how they defended LeBron. That it was more than the offense, But you might see that out of Jaylen Brown, where if Tatum might average a double double. He might average 27 and 10 and 5 this series, while Jalen averages 25, 6 and 4. But if he's guarding Luka, if he has those big fourth quarters, big plays, momentum shifting, dunks, things like that, then I think that Jalen has a good shot, being the best player. Right now, as of this morning, he was plus 650 for Finals MVP. So
Did you put money on that?
no, but I still got about 15 hours before tip off, so I might have to.
15 hours?
I mean, that's what it feels like at this point. And this
Oh.
game's never going to start. We might just be podcasting for the rest of eternity.
Who's the more important player for your success? If you can have one of these two guys have a big series, who would you rather it be, Derek White or Drew Holiday?
That's a tough question.
Because the only kind I ask, by the way. I'm not going to give you any softballs.
Yeah, no, man. It's just love those guys both so much. It depends who's on Kyrie, I guess. Who's going to be covering Kyrie? That's the answer to that one. And I think it'll be a little bit both of them. I think, and going back to the statistics versus impact, you're going to need the offense of Derek White. You're going to need him to get hot again. He's going to need at least one of those games where you saw in the first round where it's like Derek White's put up 30 points. What the hell's going on right now? He has that capability. Drew had one of those games where it really popped off. I think he finished like 28, and it was like a season high. So I think that Drew, though, and this is what they went and got him for, is having that championship pedigree, that composure where, you saw that Celtics team 2 years ago, one quarter away from going up 3-1. They blow the game. They don't win another game. So getting a guy like Drew Holiday, and you've seen a little bit in this playoffs after those losses and in those tight games against Indiana too, where he just always seems to make the right play. The moment's not too big for him. He doesn't get rattled. So I think you're going to need a Derek White game, but top to bottom, as I say, and that's I'm going back and forth, because I think top to bottom, you're going to need Drew to make more of an impact. But if Derek White's covering Kyrie, 70% of the time to Drew covering him 30% of the time, then yeah, it's going to be Derek White, leading shot blocker amongst guards in the league. You're going to need him to have his hand in Kyrie's face. Kyrie does a little dipsy-do and all that. You're going to have someone on him. So I think both guards match up fairly well, but it's going to be tough. So whoever covers Kyrie more, we need to be the better player. That's simple as that.
Who on Dallas scares you the most that's not named Luka or Kyrie?
He hasn't had the best. I've personally been a big PJ Washington fan since he came out of Kentucky. Wanted him on the Seas. I wanted him instead of Grant Williams. I was like, man, if we could just get Grant Williams out of here and just get PJ Washington, someone like that. So I think PJ, he hasn't played historically great against Celtics. Historically, Tatum and Brown have been able to kind of have their way with him. And I feel like Lively would be almost an easy answer. But I think PJ Washington being able, if he can, play some solid defense and then be able to contribute with some corner threes, if you get those games where you might get 18 and 6, and even think of how like the Wiggins going back to the finals against the Warriors, where you saw Wiggins, play great defense on Tatum. He did have a wrist injury, but also at the end of the day, Wiggins, that was the best ball he was playing of his career. So if you get a Wiggins series out of PJ Washington this round, then that's a game breaker right there. Tim Hardaway Jr., I feel like has kind of disappeared for the most part.
He hasn't really been in the rotation a ton.
That's
the guy.
Yeah. So
you should be scared of Hardy.
Hardy, yeah, true. He's been playing really well. Like again, even for him, another parallel where a young guy breaking out, where Jordan Poole, he was already solid. Then he had a really good finals against the Celtics, and then he got punched in the face by Draymond Green the following preseason. So life comes at you fast. Yeah. So, but if you have that high of being a champ, then it's all worth it. So I think, yeah, Hardy's definitely, he's stepped up and kind of broken out in these playoffs. So he worries me a little bit, but I think that just the matchup wise, that PJ Washington, if he can lock up on defense, then you know they it gives him a better shot. I'm still leaning, surprised. I'm still leaning towards the Celtics in the series, but that's just one of those guys who, if he plays out of his mind and has the best series of his career, it's like what you can't do much about it. When the third guy is the one who's the one beating you, you deserve to lose. So it's just about limiting those opportunities for them, and hopefully Kyrie and Luka kind of just try to take over the game and aren't able to have it. I need some. This game one's going to be a big indicator. It's just solely about, all right, we haven't seen Luka in this big of a stage before. I think everyone's expecting him to play great, but what if this first game's a little bit rough for him? And seeing what we're going to have coming from, Holiday and Derek White, where if you can get those guys get into Luka early and just play a more physical game with them, that's going to be big. So I think that it's all about the physicality. I'm not really worried about their bench. It's just really what the story always has been. Luka or Kyrie, one of them has to go off. You can even let one go off, but you can't be having both guys go for 30 plus. I'm fine with, if Luka puts up 35, 40, but Kyrie puts up a stinker and scores less than 20, then you should win that game. So let Luka get the hot hand and not get those other guys involved. I don't want to see the Hardys and the Washingtons and the Liveleys get confident. I don't want to see them settle into their game early in the series. So
it's very funny you said that. And shout out to Saint at Saint, just joined the chat. What's up, gentlemen? Saint, we're just chilling, talking finals. I don't know if you heard Draymond Green today, Boston Cliff, but he was saying exactly that. He was saying that, instead of trying to shut down Luka and Kyrie, you're not going to do that. Shut down everybody else, right? Let those two guys go off, but don't, because what you noticed and I thought this was pretty insightful by Draymond in that Minnesota series, in the OKC series, the biggest plays were not necessarily Kyrie Irving or Luka Doncic jumpers. The biggest energy plays, they were Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively lobs. They were PJ Washington corner threes. Those are the types of plays that if Kyrie and Luka are being unselfish and they're getting guys involved, it instills confidence. And then as a collective, it's hard to lose. So I get what you're saying. Like, let Luka get 40. Who gives a shit? But don't let, if your stat line, if you're Dallas, I think this is exactly what Draymond said, is like end of the night, Lively 12, Gafford 10, Washington 14, Hardy 8. If that's the stat line, you guys, it's not gonna be easy to win. But if it's Luka 30, Kyrie 25, and the rest of the team has under 8 or 9, that could be a recipe for success. I get that.
Yeah, and for the millionth time, I will recall the finals against Golden State. We've mentioned about Wiggins and Poole, where when you think about that finals, you don't remember Curry in the clinching game doing his good night. Like,
name some guys from that finals.
Yeah, but like you remember the Jordan Poole half court shot. You remember Wiggins. The internet certainly hasn't forgot. So if you say I don't remember that, it's like, buddy, fucking Jason Tatum was hearing that for quite some time. Still is actually. So
how about Otto Porter Jr. in that series?
Yeah,
some of the threes he hit.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what the Celtics tried, and that also worries me a little bit because that was a better, I feel like philosophically, a more sound defensive team than this year's Celtics team, with Udoka compared to Missoula. But I think you really got to get back to that, where that team defense, all right, you're not going to be able to, you don't want to be doubling Luka and Kyrie. And you saw sometimes in that, you mentioned about like Minnesota. So Minnesota was playing against Denver, where you saw Denver, and this always happens when they went against Denver, where if you double Jokic, they're going to kill you. And yeah, a little bit different, size-wise and things like that. But you can't be trying to double or give too much help to whoever is covering Luka, because then you're going to be leaving Washington open for those three. So it's about, if you're going to, if this game goes sideways and the Celtics lose, I'd rather have it be in that, Luka and Kyrie, one of them goes off, rather than have it be a close game where all of a sudden you get, 8 points in the fourth quarter from Hardy, things like that.
Right.
So I think that I usually don't agree with Draymond Green about most things, but yeah, it sounds like we're on the same page about strategy for this series. It's about just playing the same game you've played that's brought you to this point. Don't panic just because the other team has two stars too. You have two superstars and then a bunch of all stars between.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. I think that doubling Luka or Kyrie would be the stupidest decision Missoula can make. Also, you guys are very sound defensively. Between White, Holiday, Tatum, and Brown, those are four legitimately good defenders. Like Porzingis, obviously, defense isn't his strong suit in terms of moving and switching, but he's a legitimate one of the better shot blockers in the league. So,
exactly. And you
yeah,
mentioned it that I think during the regular season that Dallas led the league in alley oops, alley
yeah,
finishes.
doubling is not a good idea against this team.
Yeah,
So this next segment, this is going to end our show, but we're going to do one more segment. It's called Finish That Bold Statement. This segment is brought to you by Trafoni's Steakhouse. If you're going to go to Trafoni's, you can't put water on the steaks and slop them up. Trust me, I've tried it. They chase you out of the restaurant. So Trafoni's, don't make sloppy steaks while you're there. That's what this segment is sponsored by, Trafoni's Steakhouse. All right. Bold statements. You got to finish the statement. If Boston wins, Jason Tatum will be the blank best player in the league.
I mean, it's tough to put him number one automatically. It depends on the series he has too. Where if he goes absolutely nuclear, then yeah, that changes a lot of things. But if if him and Luke are on that level, because I think they're both around that, 3 to 5, top 3 to 5 players. Where I got Jokic at 1, and then it is that kind of bunch of who do you like? Do you like Giannis more? Do you like Luka more? Do you like Tatum more? So I think a lot of people have Luka above Tatum. I personally think that then someone be like, "Oh, Luka's statistically better than Tatum on defense," where it's like, "All right, we'll watch the games."
Great
So
impression.
I think that two-way Tatum's better, but
No, I
I'm not
said
gonna.
great impression.
But I think that I'm not going to argue with someone who has Luka at 2, Tatum at 3, or Luka 3, Tatum at 4. So I think they're both top 5, but whoever wins this series is definitively top 3. And
Well,
I don't,
I guess so. In theory, Luca can have a better series, but the Celtics can win the series. Well, I guess my question is, if they continue their trajectory, right? So if they continue the way they're playing, I'm not saying if Tatum scores 40 a game, obviously that's a different conversation. But if he continues with what he's been doing this playoff run, same thing with Luca. Where I guess my question to you, Cliff, is what's the highest that Tatum can go? You're on mute.
that question was so first you say, oh, assuming this trajectory, and you say, well, what's the highest he can go? Well,
Right.
yeah, if he's going to average, like, if he puts up the same stat line as last series, I think he's number 3, maybe 2. Giannis is so tough to trust. I feel like a lot of people will slot Giannis in there. If you're one of those people who still thinks Embiid is better than Tatum, yeah, you got bigger issues to deal with. Just simply because Embiid can't stay healthy. What other MVP has not made the conference finals in their career? Not even regular finals, just conference. So yeah, I don't pay you any mind if you have Embiid as a top 5 player. So I think that right now, if Tatum has the same stat line as last series, wins the finals, you can put him in there number 3. Then it goes like, all right, does Luka still, if Luka has a better statistic series, but Tatum gets the trophy, does it go Jokic 1, Luka 2, Tatum 3, or like in that sort of order? But I think that whoever wins the series is definitively top 3, maybe 2, probably not 1 because Jokic has his MVPs and he has the championship already. We saw what he did, in the playoffs. Even though they ended up losing, it was still it wasn't for a lack of Jokic. Let's put it that way. So I think Jokic is still going to be number 1. unless Tatum goes and averages like 35 plus in the series. Then you can maybe try to make that argument where right now, this day, he might be number one, but you can't. No, I think neither one of those guys passes Jokic with the first finals. You still got a little bit of catching up to do. So
Huh.
whoever wins is 2 or number 3, but I
All
can't
right.
put them
I
any
think it's
lower
fair.
than that.
All right, next question. The best player off the bench for the Boston Celtics in this series will be.
Well, if Porzingis starts in Horford,
Okay.
so I think that's simple enough. But I think you're going to need Peyton Pritchard to give you a spark at least at some point in this series. So I'll expect to see a little bit of Peyton Pritchard out there too.
The Boston Celtics will win this series in blank games.
5. I would
The
say
better
6, but
coach.
too many people are saying 6. We're going
I
5,
said
baby.
6. I said 6.
We're
The
going
better coach in this series is.
Joe Mazzulla. I mean, do I have to answer that one? I played the
Yeah,
fifth.
I guess so.
I think these, but I think Kidd's drastically improved as a coach. And he's more of a manager of, egos a little bit with Kyrie and Luca. They have done a good job with some of the young guys, but I think, Missoula kind of inherited that talent too. But you see they changed their philosophy, went back to more 3-point shooting. It's paid off. Historic net rating this season, but none of that matters if you don't win. So I will say, as of right now, Missoula, but that one's fairly close, and I think we'll have an answer by the end of this series because both of them are going to need to make some adjustments, and I don't think both of them are capable. So it's about which one is and which one isn't. We're going to learn it together, but I can't say way more one guy than the other right now.
All right, I got 2 more questions. This is a bold statement, true or false question. Winning this series will be more important than winning the 07-08 series against the Lakers with Pierce, Garnett, and Ray Allen. True or false?
False, just because it had been so long. And I actually, fuck, now I'm thinking about it. Shit. I mean,
I
we're
know
not
that's
too
a tough
far off.
question.
Yeah, shit. Fuck, man, we're old. Yeah, 2008 was a long time ago. But I think because that was the first one since those bird teams in the 80s, and the team had been so bad for so long, and the turnaround they had, that was just, that was just chef's kiss there. But it is closer than I would have thought because this team has come so close so many times. I mean, everyone here remembers when you jinxed them in Game 7 in the bubble.
I
People
remember.
still talk about that till this day. That's
Yep.
outside their control. But this team has had so much near success and those failures and the big moments that you should, even besides being a Celtics fan, just like Tatum and Brown, they've dealt with so much just shit of criticism from people. Where I just want to see them shut up, everyone, man. Saying how overrated they are, they never get it done. It's just you. If they get this one, that will be big, and it also does. The '08 team was at the end of their run. We were hoping for another chip, but we're able to get it. But if this team gets this one, it could be the start of more than one. So I still give it to the '08 team by just a little bit.
Something for all you Celtics fans in Boston Cliff. This will pump you up. Jaylen Brown dropped an African proverb when asked about criticism he and Jason Tatum have received. The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Yeah. I agree with that. He could have also easily been talking about Kyrie Irving in Boston and Brooklyn with that quote too. But I think you've seen Jalen talk a lot in the press conferences and interviews. He's dropping a lot of cuss words. I like it. Yesterday he had
Profanity.
something. Yeah, yesterday I forget what he was saying about. He was like, oh, like about saying about getting the credit. He's like, oh, I don't really, might not get the credit that I deserve, but I don't give a fuck. Like, so you got to have that mentality. You can't be those. They're getting older now. They're not those young guys just happy to be here. It's like, time for talk is over. Just shut everyone up now, get the job done, and there's nothing they can say. So I do like the mentality that JB's coming into this series with.
Final question, and then we'll close out the pod. And thanks to everyone who listened, who's listening the day after this game has been played, who's listening, a week from now. I appreciate you guys rocking with us, and shout out to all the loyal Fireside Nets listeners. 2 scenarios for you, and I want you to share how you will proceed each scenario. One scenario is that Boston Celtics win the championship. How are you celebrating? The other scenario is the Boston Celtics lose the championship. How are you grieving with that loss?
Massive drug addiction if they lose. But we're not going to go that road because they're not. But realistically, if they were to lose, man, I still got work in the morning. Like, it will suck. I might not be able to go on Twitter as much. Might not be Sports Center for a month or two. But no, we'll worry about that if it happens. I've dealt with it before. I can manage well. Okay, nothing as a Boston sports fan. After the Patriots lost that perfect season, at a young age, I decided you can't care about this shit too much. You gotta enjoy the celebration you get from it. But at the end of the day, man, I don't know these guys. But on the other hand, they win. Oh, baby. The tarps are off. People are out in the streets. I will probably try to be near the Garden, if not in it, for these later games coming up. If there's potential to clinch, because it's gonna be insane. If they win, will be at the parade. May have to find a way onto a duck boat. Through whatever methods necessary. May have to put in a couple phone calls to some old friends. But yeah, just the last time the Celtics won, I remember being at that parade, immaculate vibes throughout town. Fucking everyone was feeling it. So I think that's getting me all worked up thinking about right now, man. If they win, it's going to be absolute anarchy, but in a good way.
Right,
Nice,
good anarchy.
nice, fun Boston way, not the bad Boston stuff, but the good Boston
Sure.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be. Oh, we're gonna be out in Causeway, baby. Just getting tarps off, pants down, consensually pants down. But yeah.
Well, you could put your pants down consensually with yourself.
Well, yeah, but you can't be exposing yourself to people.
No,
It's one of
that's
those
not.
things.
Yeah,
But
no,
if everyone, if 1,000 people are all collectively like pants off for the seas, then
right.
it's about it's mob mentality, but
Right.
used for the right purposes.
Right, like if Pee Wee Herman's a Celtics fan. No, I get it.
I mean, he would have loved to see them.
He would have loved the seas. We're gonna end the pod now, and this has been Fireside Nets episode 197. Thank you to Boston Cliff for joining the show. Any final words for all the fans out there of the Celtics, of the Mavericks, of the Nets? Just give us your final words, and then we'll end the show.
C's up. Mavs suck. Respectfully, fuck Luka and Kyrie and Jason Kidd. Well, actually, not respectfully, just fuck Jason Kidd all the way. And we'll get back to the Nets real quick and end on a good Nets note. Nets fans, you just gotta stay with the team right now. This is where you really learn to love the young guys. Really be into it. Take advantage of some cheap tickets. Terrible team to watch. Get to Barclays. Get to the Clays more. As KD affectionately
we don't call it that anymore.
Damn it! It was really catchy. I thought it was going to stick. I swear. But yeah, it's just enjoy it. Got embrace the struggle. Gotta love it because it'll pay off in the end. I didn't dip out in the Celtics when they got rid of Rondo and it looked like complete rebuild. Brad Stevens, who's this lame nerd from Butler. But then you just you really actually enjoy the game. You see these guys play, and you can make these decisions from your own viewing and just what direction do you want to see the team go in. And I think it might take 3, maybe 4 years, but if they get the vision right, if Marks does it, that will be a miracle. But you got some pieces, and those draft picks will be coming back around in the next season or two. So you can't afford to get it wrong this next time, but gotta have the faith they'll finally get it right.
Stay the course. Stay the course, Nets fans. All right. Thanks to everyone for listening, and go Celtics for once ever.
Go Seas, baby.